It's March. What does that mean? Problem Gambling Month. What is new in 2026? Welcome again to another episode of the 1% in Recovery podcast, where we encourage you to laugh every day. Work hard on recovery, work hard in your relationships, work hard in your job, business, school, just work. And to love unconditionally, put much more love out there and watch much more love return. Remember, recovery is beautiful, your EQ is your IQ, and you cannot outthink an emotional issue. Now, we keep encouraging people to go to the website, lifeiswonderful.love, L-O-V-E, download the Recovery Growth Scorecard where you can introduce natural dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin. You got to start changing the neuroplasticity in your brain. You got to start healing the brain. And how you do that? With the free, I repeat, the free Recovery Growth Scorecard at lifeiswonderful.love. Now, let's jump into this week's episode. March. First week in March, also the whole month of March is Problem Gambling Month, Awareness Month. Now, that because gambling is so ubiquitous everywhere in the country, in the world, it really is becoming a everyday 12 months a year, not just March. We want to kind of focus on problem gambling. In reality, it started also off as compulsive gambling, pathological gambling, how it was defined in the DSM. How they did that back in the 1980s with Dr. Custard. The way he kind of pushed all this too. You got to know the history. You got to understand where all this came from. Now, they've been studying compulsive gambling all the way back to even when we're talking about Freud. You know, Freud associated compulsive gambling with compulsive masturbation. You know, other psychologists of that era between the 1920s and the 1950s thought a lot of the compulsive gambling came because that the child was left too much alone in early childhood. And there was this almost like an attachment disorder where they then needed to escape later on in life. Now, as we've changed and got much more information, there's a lot of reasons why people get into compulsive gambling. Now, what makes it harder is, and you get all different other types, so actually the demographics and also the DNA of the compulsive gambler has changed over the years because now it's on our phones. We have smartphones, we have AI on our phones. We also have, it's one addiction that you can do it in front of everybody, whether you're in school, whether you're at work, whether you're at the Thanksgiving dinner table, or you're in bed with your spouse, whether you're by yourself, at home on the couch or in the car. You can gamble anywhere, anytime now with so much legalized gambling, and there's still a lot of black market illegal gambling. Now, you got to understand a couple of things about gambling. Gambling is even worse than alcohol. There's no such thing as responsible gambling. There's no such thing as moderation drinking. Once you've crossed the line, and it's easy to cross the line, that's why 12-step groups, always listen to 12-step, because those are the people that really went down this hole. They describe in their literature, in the combo book, it says compulsive gambling is one of the baffling, insidious, compulsive addictions out there. Baffling, yeah, because people don't even know why you're spending so much money. Compulsive, yeah, you keep going back and back. You keep losing and you keep going back for more and you lose more. And you also do not believe that you're going to keep losing. You believe at some point that your system's going to kick in, that you've learned how to either play a game, let's say it's blackjack, poker, you know much more about sports or options or crypto, and now with all the prediction markets, people believe that they actually have a chance to make money. You don't. Not in the long run. It's not a money management vehicle. It's not like another stream of income. In essence, it's another expense, and it's a big expense because once you start losing, you start upping. you start saying, well, I got to win more. Now that I lost $5,000, I got to bet the equivalent of 10 grand. Then you lose 10 grand, then I got to bet the equivalent of 20 grand. Then you lose 20 grand, you're up to 50 grand. And it just keeps going up. And it becomes much more repetitive instead of just like once a month, once a week, becomes daily. And so I got to understand, you got to listen to the compulsive gamblers that are in recovery. When they say insidious is a just very on the money description of problem gambling, compulsive gambling, pathological gambling, because it is slow and easy. In the beginning, it is fun. Oh yeah, you listen, you're hearing, let's say you're at a casino. Let's say you're watching the game on TV and it feels exciting because you got some money riding on it. Now, people don't want to talk about it. They keep saying that gambling is exciting. But you know what else is being caused? Your anxiety is going up. Your body becomes really tense because you have the chance of losing money. Yes, you have the chance of winning money, but you also have the chance of really losing a lot of money. So it's insidious. You've got to realize is that this is not an easy thing. It's slow and easy, and it's almost like water damage in your house. Oh, it's just a little bit of water. It's a water drip. And then the drip becomes bigger and bigger. And then the water gets onto the floor, it gets into the walls, it gets into the sheetrock. It gets in everywhere. And then you cannot get the water out. It's just like no difference. You can't get that gambling out of your system just slowly. You can't just like half dry sheetrock or some type of rubber mats that they have underneath carpet. Those big dryers never work. And it's the same thing with gambling. Man, you just can't just slowly get out of gambling by just gambling a little bit less. You've got to stop because it is gushing out of your bank account and you are creating more loans, more everything. And you've got to be finding a way to not to gamble, to find a way to make money or to generate money or revenue. So you've got to understand that you have to stop problem gambling. And any of the most discouraging thing is a lot of these councils on problem gambling, state councils on problem gambling, even the National Council on Problem Gambling still promote some of this responsible gambling because they get money from the gambling industry. They are a bought entity. And if they truly understand anything about gambling, the gambling industry only cares about money. That's it. They only care about money. I mean, the biggest example that has happened over the past couple years where came out, there was a guy named Terry Wanatabi. He ended up losing $350 million, mainly at casinos, playing baccarat, poker, blackjack. Got his money, inherited his money from his parents who owned some of the largest party supply companies in the country. And even though he did have sisters, his part of his inheritance and also money that he made was $350 million. He ended up losing. The only one that acted somewhat ethically was the Wind Corporation. After losing just only a few $1 million, they understood that he was a pathological gambler, compulsive gambler, that he needed help, and they were not going to continue. But that didn't stop Harris. Nope, that didn't stop Caesars. Harris ended up taking about $112 million from this guy. Rio and Caesars took $209 million. Now, at what point do you not think that this guy had a problem? When they say they try to protect players, that is total BS. He alone was generating 6% of their revenue. And when you're talking about billions of dollars, 6% is a lot of money. And at some point, they would feed him more alcohol. They would feed him pills. There was other lawsuits. And you want to know how bad it is? This is how I know that they're full of it. When the gambling industry says that they look after each other's, Harris, after they took $112 million, They had given him 14.7 mil on credit on a marker, which he never paid. They took him to court. They not only had him in civil court, they had him in criminal court. That was going to possibly put him 28 years in jail. This is a man that was over 50 at the time. So chances are he was going to die in jail. Eventually they dropped the criminal case because there was two things that went against. Harris thought that they were going to get their money, that he got countersued because Watanabe started saying that, it was illegal what they were doing. And on top of that, the Nevada Gaming Commission opened up an investigation. Now, separately with Caesars, even though they took over 209 mil from this guy, they were punished, and their punishment was like $250,000. It was like a drop in the bucket. It was almost like less than 1% of what they took from him, even less than that. Almost 0.01%. That's how small the fine is. So who cares? Caesars easily paid the $250 to the Gaming Commission. But you got to understand, problem gambling now is everywhere. It's not just this story about this one guy. What I'm saying is the gambling industry does not care. They becoming now the gambler. And what people don't realize is they have overstepped because they are so eager to make quarterly earnings because they're now on the stock exchanges and they're trying to make their quarterly earnings to make a certain amount of bonuses that it's not enough to just have sports betting. They had to increase all the prop betting, and now it's just a lot more prop betting. Not only that, then they had to increase live betting. Then it has to be all these micro betting. Live betting for me is mainly like, you're at halftime and then you can now bet on the other team, or you can continually betting whether you're winning or losing. So you can either try to catch up or double down. The micro betting is like on every pitch, or every drive in football or whatever is going to happen. And the speed of the gaming and gambling is getting insane. It's causing people to get destroyed much faster. I was going to say 5 years, but I'm actually now seeing it 2 to 3 years people are going to get put under. Not the 20-year run like me and a lot of my contemporaries, my peers in recovery gambling. And it becomes an issue. And now throw in all the prediction markets, the call sheets, the poly market, all these other, and then the divisions that DraftKings and FanDuel are having about prediction markets. And then it's getting so sick that they are now gambling and putting predictions on bombing. The bombings that just took place from the US and Israel and Iran, there was actually odds on that. And of course, in the government, there was 6 suspicious accounts newly formed that each made over $1 million. Somehow they knew that Iran was going to get bombed. No different than elections, no different. And it becomes disturbing when you have either natural disasters, when a hurricane is going to hit, when some type of war is going to break out. Same thing when the US captured and took Maduro from Venezuela. There was odds on that in the prediction markets. It is getting very disturbing because it becomes now almost an everyday thing. Like you are now going to be, someone can now bet on you how long it's going to take for you to get to work. Are you going to be on time? Or are you going to get there early? And why? If gambling was fun and entertaining, it doesn't have to be so pervasive that it has to be in every single inch of our lives. Especially when the odds are always in the house favor and they're going to win. So I can talk a long time about problem gambling. I'm encouraging people, if you want to understand how to stop problem gambling, that's why I created a course. Strong leader, strong character. Develop your character, know who you are, have a purpose. Oh, and then you know what you're doing each and every day. You have much more peace, you have less anxiety, you have less depression. You know what you're going to do each and every day, and then that is how you get the real dopamine, the real oxytocin, the real serotonin, the real endorphins, through the workouts, through the walks in nature, through the hugging of people, through the walking with your dog or being with your cat, through accomplishing tasks like making your bed or doing some type of home project or doing something at work. That is how you actually move ahead. Man, everybody deserves recovery. Everybody deserves to have a wonderful, joyous life. So with that, with this being Problem Gambling Month, always remember there is a way out. Life is Wonderful.Love is one vehicle. There's a few others out there that are doing the work, spreading the message that there's other things to do with our lives. With that, we're going to conclude this episode of the 1% in Recovery podcast.